for a very long time, I've had this goal of trading time for money. So we've had other discussions on how we each define success in different ways. Well, one of my core definitions of success is time freedom and putting extensive value on my time and the freedom to utilize my time in the way I want to.
Hey, you leader, entrepreneur, business owner, solopreneur, whatever you call yourself, we know you're a visionary business builder, wealth seeker looking to combine a passion for doing good with leading consciously. It's time to shift from a traditional focus of pure wealth accumulation to one that integrates well-being and fulfillment. This is the Conscious Edge podcast, and I'm Alecia St. Germain, entrepreneur and coach. Along with my friend and wellness advocate, Jonathan Duggar, we're diving into what it means to embody radical self-acceptance while still evolving to lead with compassion and kindness. We're sharing our own experiences and expertise as we unpack imposter syndrome, perfectionism, procrastination, and all the other things that lead to burnout and keep you from experiencing pure joy, business growth, and maximum impact. This is a safe and supportive space to explore what it means to be a human creating wealth and building a business. You're here for a purpose, and it's time to shine your light. So here we go. Welcome back to the Conscious Edge podcast. I'm Alecia St. Germain. I'm super excited. Guess what, everybody? Jonathan's back.
Woohoo! I'm home.
We missed you so much. I told everybody, I don't know if it was last session or a few sessions ago, it took me 4 times to start because I kept not liking how we started, and I didn't have you to just laugh when I screw up.
Well, it feels nice to have been missed, so I appreciate that.
So I did not tell. Well, first of all, for those of you who are just joining us, Jonathan is our regular wellness advocate. And here at the Conscious Edge, we talk all about things having to do with building wealth and building a business and human experience, the things we go through in the process of doing that. So I did not tell everyone where you were. So can you tell everybody where you've been all this time?
So I've spent the last 6 weeks in Italy, for the majority of the time in Italy, and for about a week in Spain, in southern Spain.
Amazing. I know how many people out there that I work with will tell me that one of their dreams is to get to a point in their business where they can take extended time and travel abroad for long periods of time. Or did you work while you were there?
Okay, so I have to preface that with a little disclaimer thing because technically it varies country to country, but for the EU, which Italy and Spain are both part of the EU, a US citizen is supposed to have a work visa of some sort or an extended stay visa to spend extended time in those countries and work even abroad. So you're restricted, of course, from working in that country within the job in Italy or with an Italian company or something like that. But there is a little bit of gray area. And the gray area is that there's an expectation that if you have a business or you work in another country, you come on vacation. So I was technically on vacation, that you still maintain your life at home. And what part of that is your professional life. So yes, I did, maintain contact with my clients. I did some of my real estate work from abroad. And then one of the things that I did while I was there that is work related, but I can also put it under the umbrella of vacation, is one of the things that I do as the wellness side of my business is I help set up wellness centers and different types of wellness centers. And one of my clients creates wellness environments that are primarily focused on pain management and addiction treatment. And she has a long-term goal of opening several facilities in the EU. And she loves Italy as I do. So I looked at multiple locations and multiple pieces of real estate that could be a good fit for that type of approach. So I was working legally while I was there. So that's part of the logistics of getting ready for that kind of trip, is figuring out how to have to maintain the life that you plan to come back to when you do come back home.
Did you picture any retreats of us doing any of the retreats in Italy? Because I'm down for that.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time in the region of Italy called Umbria, which it adjoins Tuscany, and it's a little less touristy, a little less known, although it's becoming more so very rapidly. But Umbria is the only region that in all of Italy that's completely landlocked. So it is surrounded by mountains, but it's still very accessible to the coast, but just a beautiful, natural, very natural area. And there are two different towns that I have been to before, but it had been a little while. Orvieto is one, and then there's a little village called Spello, Spello, Spello. And both of those towns I got to spend some extensive time in. And both of those towns I found really great spots for a future retreat. And spent some dedicated time setting some intentions and thinking about what that would look and feel like. So yeah. We'll have that discussion at some point soon.
Oh, good. I'm excited. And on that note, we have a retreat coming up in late January, early February. And we are down to one property we're looking at in Oceanside, California, and one property we're looking at in the Scottsdale area, like a Phoenix farmhouse, I think
Phoenix
it's called.
Farmhouse.
So we will have those details for you. In fact, they may, by the time this podcast comes out, we actually probably already do have those details available for people. So,
and we're very excited about it.
I'll add it to the show notes. Yeah. I spent a bunch of time the other day going through, you had sent me a whole bunch of properties, and I was like looking through every single one. And like, there was one you sent me. I was like, ooh, like immediately, as soon as I looked at it, I was like, I don't know what has happened in this property, but energetically, this place just has something on it. And it was I could literally feel like green slime. I was like, not this place. I can't say why. It's just not this place.
So maybe not your traditional approach to property selection, but one that works for us, and will definitely work for the people we end up showing up.
And I think it's both, right? In some of these intuitive things where you have a feeling about something, and then maybe in a positive way, let's say, where I would like get a feel for something. And then I'd say, okay, let's make sure the numbers work. Are the dates available? So you lock it up. You have the logic piece too, right? So there's the feeling and the logic. And I think that's what creates the knowing of like, yeah, this is going to be the place that we really want. So I'm excited for that. Okay, I digress.
ADD moment.
Okay, so you're getting ready for this travel. One thing that people need to be aware of is that if you are planning to work abroad, if you are planning to work while you are abroad, you need to be aware of the regulations around working and what that looks like and how you do that legally.
Yes.
So I just want to kind of put a bow on that one.
Just on that too, for those people that are really looking to do a longer term stint at working abroad, there are many countries now have what are called digital nomad visas. And so just Google that for whatever particular country, and you'll see if there's a variation of that. Some of them call them entrepreneur visas, high performing professional visas. But in most cases, they're not difficult to get. You often do have to have some sort of tax share plan with that country, like so you're paying taxes in that country in some form or fashion. But often it's not, from what I found at least, not cost prohibitive. But my encouragement is if you're going to do something like that, do it legally, do it right, and do your homework ahead of time. There's lots of good resource information out there now on doing that.
Awesome. Is this your first? This is not your first time. I should ask this differently. This is not your first time taking an extended trip. When we first started the podcast, you went to Spain for like 5 weeks or something like that, right?
A month. So
a month.
This is the longest stint that I've done. But yes, I did something similar, which was the true experiment. at the beginning of the year in February, March of this year in Spain. Mm-hmm. And part of the process has been this research of my partner and I have talked about living abroad or having a second home abroad for a very long time. And so we've been comparing residency programs and tax base and just the hoops and hurdles to make that happen for a US citizen. And so part of Spain was exploring that. And my partner did language school, Spanish language school back in February. And then he did a second stint, 2 weeks in southern Spain this time, a second round of language school, an immersion language program. So the first of the year trip really was a litmus test for how do I do this again and extend it even further. So extended this trip by 2 more weeks. And
yeah, baby steps, right?
Baby steps, exactly.
And so before that point, you'd never spent this much time in one, like out of the country like this.
As in younger days, I went to school and actually went to school in Italy. So I've lived in Italy for an extended period on a student visa on 2 different occasions prior to this, but not as an adult, a working adult that has multiple businesses to manage and maintain and keep moving. And so, yes. So prior, I was a carefree student with very low expectations in terms of where I was staying, what I was eating.
So what made you decide you're at a point in your business? Like, how did you get to that point where you're like, okay, now is the time to start doing this, or now I feel like I can take this on?
So this is a good springboard into our next, or one of our future podcasts on goals, short-term, long-term goals, and dreams versus goals and those kind of things. So for a very long time, I've had this goal of trading time for money. So we've had other discussions on how we each define success in different ways. Well, one of my core definitions of success is time freedom and putting extensive value on my time and the freedom to utilize my time in the way I want to. So I have been working, I would say, for the past 20 years at trying to create systems that have the ability that I can step out of and they still continue to run. Or I can step out of in a direct hands-on fashion and they still can run effectively. So there has been a lot of groundwork laid to automate processes, to have some redundancy in things that are kind of key elements of what I do in the business so that I can pass the reins off if needed for at least a short period of time. And then to automate things in a way that, I don't know if automate's the right word, but create approaches that I can do things remotely. I can utilize technology to pay bills, to sign documents, to do some things that are kind of logistics that are part of maintaining any business. So still a work in progress, but I will have to say that this trip definitely proved to me that even surprises, and I can talk about some of those specifics if you'd like me to, but even surprises can be handled, and those things that can't can usually wait.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about, you mentioned like you have certain things, certain processes you put in place, things that, what role do you serve in your day-to-day? I just want to build out the picture for people. What was life look like when you're here? And then how did it look when you were there?
So I'd say the shift, one of the biggest shifts just from a day-to-day standpoint is I spent a lot less time on the phone. So my mode of contact, because Italy and Spain are both 7 hours ahead of central time zone, so 6 hours ahead of your time zone. So at least 2 days a week, I kept business hours compatible with my US clients. So meaning that if I needed to schedule phone calls, I scheduled them on those days during times that would be compatible with client schedules. But my intention all along was to try and shift to an email and a delayed response model. So something that it wasn't, to remove some of the urgency, and I'm using air quotes that you guys can't see, but urgency that often is not real urgency, but often our clients and ourselves put on things. And let's say is really define, is this urgent or can't wait till I can get to it via email tomorrow or schedule a phone call for my next business day. So part of it was more of a scheduling thing, but I'd say that's one of the most definable shifts was a lot less time on the phone, more time corresponding via email, following up to a text message or a WhatsApp message, things like that. Some of the other things I would say that instead of, I'm trying to think of a specific example, like reconciling something financial related. So something that I might do on a weekly basis, like looking at financials on a particular piece of real estate or a particular company that I might do on a weekly basis, like every Thursday or Friday of the week. I did that much more sporadically, like every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, or even in some cases, not until I got back. So that was more of a personal control issue thing instead of something that has anything to do with the effectiveness of the business or the system. So part of what any of you that want to do this, part of what you're going to have to figure out is how to make shifts internally with some of your own control issues, some of the own things that you feel like help you feel secure in your business or in your relationships or in the processes that you're used to doing on a day-to-day basis, and teasing apart what really is necessary and what really is fabricated to help you feel better, if that makes sense.
Well, I was gonna ask you, so what, before you went, what did you worry about? Like before you left, what did you worry about?
That list is pretty extensive. Just having things that I hadn't planned for come up that I would be too far away to take care of. From the business side, personal side, I have mothers in her 80s. I have family and friends that have been struggling with some health issues. So, I thought through those things, but I'm going to lay this out because it's a good place to put this too. So I am a person that has learned to leverage my tendency to catastrophize. And if you don't know what that means, that just means like thinking of the worst possible thing that could happen. I have had to learn to manage that by turning it into what I think is actually now a skill of I go to worst case scenario and then I come up with a strategy for it. And if I can, I'm not going to say get comfortable with, but if I can come up with a viable strategy for it, then I can lay that to rest. And it's almost never worst case scenario. So one of the things that I thought about, well, let's say from the personal side with family members, with hopping on a plane and flying back to the US on an emergency situation if I had to, I might be delayed by 2 or 3 hours compared to doing that from here. So it's sort of like the time difference is minimal in terms of taking care of something, a necessity or an emergency. The time difference is minimal. So from a worst case scenario standpoint on one of the business things, I actually had one of those happen. And it was related to something financial where I had a line of credit that I utilize a lot for floating funds for one of my businesses. And for whatever reason, it fell through the cracks before I left that it was due to reset. And there's a lot of paperwork involved when that happens. You have to go through some hoops and hurdles to get it done. So I spent about 2 hours on the phone with one of my bankers working through what are the specifics that we need and how do I make this happen from Italy. And we figured it out. It was something that was unexpected. And it was a matter of getting into problem solving mode, being flexible and adaptable, coming up with a strategy and helping the person that you're working with become your advocate instead of you're creating these problems, so it's not my fault. And it worked out. It was a few more hoops and hurdles, a little extra time, a stressful day, self-induced stress, but a stressful day, but was able to figure it out. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
no, it absolutely does. It was what did you worry about before you left was the question. It's interesting because I have a tendency to think in the way of like, we'll always figure it out. And sometimes I don't think forward, but I do always figure it out. But my husband is the catastrophizer and my son are the catastrophizers. Like here's the thing about people like that. They're really great in a crisis because they don't need any time to think. They already figured it out before it ever happened.
We've already been through those steps.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And it is a very, I think, important point. It is, if that is something that you tend to do, you need to work on, there's some great cognitive behavioral strategies out there to learn how to manage that. And like I said, turn it into a skill, turn it into something useful and practical, because if you stay in a place of catastrophe, you will be in a constant state of depletion the whole time you're on your trip, or the whole time you have made some sort of life adjustment that's out of your norm, out of your comfort zone, because you can constantly find things that can go wrong.
Well, and your brain doesn't know the difference between it happening and it like possibly happening when you're thinking about it. So you have to also manage around this could happen. Here's what I'll do if it does. And the likelihood of this happening is very slim. And so let's put that to rest, because sometimes I've seen catastrophizers act as though it will happen.
Yes, exactly.
And that's very paralyzing.
Absolutely. That's not managing it in any way, shape, or form. So the whole idea is that you go through the steps to figure out a strategy or approach so that you can lay it to rest, so that you can step away from it. So, yeah.
We talked a little bit about what you did to prepare, like as we've talked about this, but what else did you do to prepare before you left?
Make sure, just from a very practical, pragmatic standpoint, everything that I could absolutely possible have on auto pay, set up in an automated fashion, that's done. Anything that could be paid ahead that would be coming up, try and have that done. Make sure that I do have a very clear contact path for friends, family, business associates, so they know multiple ways to reach me or to stay in touch with me. And that's dual purpose. That's, for me, feeling a sense of security that I can maintain contacts, but it's also to alleviate some of the anxiety from the other person or the other party's standpoint, so that they don't, when they know you're going to be gone for 6 months, they can over focus on that. You're far away, unreachable. I had a client say that to me. It's like, since you're practically going to be unreachable for 6 weeks, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, whoa, back up, Buster. I'm very reachable. WhatsApp is active and works really well all over the world. You have my WhatsApp. That's how we communicate now. That's not going to change. Email, I'm going to be checking every day. And if I'm not going to be checking it for a period of time, you'll get an away email just like you do now that says I'm out of the office for this amount of time. So I tried to put a atmosphere of normalcy around the day to day, because I personally wanted to feel that way. I wanted to keep the form and function very similar, just the time zone shifted. So, I really did start thinking about it that way. It's like, my time zone is just, I have West Coast clients. I'm not ever in their time zone, and we function effectively. So I'm still going to have those West Coast clients. I'm just going to be in a different time zone. So I just have to figure out how to make that compatible. So I had another one, and it just slipped my mind that I took care ahead of time. Oh, banking stuff. So I made sure before I left that debit cards, credit cards, anything that I might need to use remotely related to financial, bank accounts, digital checking, that it would work overseas. Because I learned in my last trip in February that sometimes if you're on a foreign IP address, that certain things in the US won't work because the bank or the credit card picks it up as a security threat. So in all those cases, with the exception of one, I had an issue with one particular credit card. But as long as they have in their records, like there's a switch that they can throw that will show you're going to be out of the country. And so that they may be getting emails or access to your online accounts or something like that from a foreign IP address. And that was something, again, that I had to learn kind of by trial and error. That was something that I did not have on my radar my trip in February, and all of a sudden I can't access bank accounts. So, and again, was able to resolve that then by a phone call, but This time I had it set up so that there were no issues while I was over there.
Cool. Anything you learned that you would do differently next time?
Let me think. Probably, I mean, this isn't really differently, but this highlighted some of the ways that, especially the whole thing with having to do the loan documents remotely, there's always a way. Like there's always a way. So I was reminding myself of that multiple times where I was going down a rabbit hole of, oh crap, how am I, I'm not going to be able to do this, or this is going to have to wait, or, I'm going to have to disappoint somebody and say, I can't get to this for the next 4 weeks. Or so I think just really learning that in a practical way, that there's a practical approach of there's always a way. And if there's not, it's probably not that urgent.
Mm-hmm.
So, I did just think of another thing that we did kind of have to turn off because I haven't figured out a way to automate yet. So I have my CBD business, my online CBD business. So that is very much run as our pop and pop business. We don't have a mom involved, a pop and pop business. So, we handle our own shipping of our CBD products and that kind of thing. So we basically just said the online store is closed down for the next 6 weeks. So I would like to figure out some way to use a drop ship company to handle some of that kind of thing, something like that, so that we don't have to have downtime because we did have several customers that we knew ordered on a regular basis that we tried to tell them to order ahead, but we missed a few. So there were a few that were needing their CBD drops or their pet CBD drops and not able to get them. And so that was a little bit of fallout, but I've got a plan in place for next time though. Or I'm working on a plan for next time.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes you don't know. That's the thing. You don't really know where some of your blind spots are until you just do it. And that's so much of what we talk about with perfectionists out there is like, you'll try to plan and make everything perfect. And this goes for everything, but you don't actually get it right. You can only get it to like 70 or 80%. And then you got to execute in order to find out where the flaws are or where you got to improve. So the only way to get it right is to just have some failures. Well,
and the awesomeness in this with entrepreneurs, because I do think a lot of entrepreneurs have more drive to do this type of thing than maybe and maybe this is too judgment loaded, but in my mind, just seeing it personality attributes of most entrepreneurs, we learn by doing. So this is the perfect laboratory to learn by doing, because every time there are going to be things that happen that you could not have planned for, and that you could not have foreseen. And you've just got to remain flexible and adaptable and flow with it and learn from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit as we kind of wrap up here, the fun side of this. We talked a lot about the logistics and all of that stuff. But as you're doing this, I think that these moments where we are just living life fully and whatever it is you think it's not possible, and then you start doing it and it's just extraordinary. Did you have any ahas or like moments that opened or something that's going to be powerful that you'll take away from this experience?
I will say that I went in with an intention to really practice mindfulness and practice gratitude while I was on this trip. And I'm going to get emotional. I had some very defining moments where the flow of gratitude was so huge that it was almost overwhelming. Like just understanding how blessed and how fortunate we all are to wake up every single day and take another breath and to be able to see beauty in nature and see beauty in the people around us. And it was, I preach mindfulness and I preach self-compassion and I try and practice it, but having unique environments and places that are just so supremely beautiful from a standpoint of nature and man and people creating these wonders and being able to kind of revel in the miracle of it is really helpful in shifting to that place of staying in gratitude and staying mindful as much as we can, staying in the moment. So I took lots of pictures, which I've always enjoyed photography. And some people's like, I've had somebody say, doesn't that detract from what you're doing? I'm like, actually, no, it makes me slow down. It slows down my brain. It slows down my body. I stop, I look, and I capture. And that's what a picture does for me. So you think it's okay to give out my Instagram?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been talking about Instagram.
Okay. So if any of you guys, I'm trying a new thing on Instagram where you actually, I can't remember what it's called, but you like set up kind of folders of different parts of your trip, and you can kind of give them a theme and things like that. So I'm trying some of that on Instagram, and Alecia will tell you, I am not very techy. I managed to break things very easily, but I have been using Instagram to record photographs and specific trips and events. So my Instagram is The Other Duggar, and Duggar is Dugger. So The Other Duggar, and there's kind of a joke behind that name, which if you message for yourself, that I could tell you what that is. But I do have my account set up as private, but if you request to follow me, I will most likely accept that request. So if you want to see some of the pictures, some of the photographs that I took on the trip, and some of the comments related to the photographs, I didn't journal the trip in a way, but I did try, and whenever I would have a group of photographs, I would try and from a mindful standpoint, describe what I was feeling, thinking, doing in those moments of those photographs. Because often I would post photographs like a day or two after I took them. And usually they were taken, within a span of 5 or 6 hours within a day. So maybe give you some little insight into the trip. So.
Very cool. Are you planning for your next one?
Yes. Already in the works.
Are you going to the same places? Are you going somewhere else?
Probably back to a couple of the same places, but some new territory as well. So
in Italy, Spain, is that just like your...
Probably southern Italy that my partner's never been, and haven't spent time in there in over 30 years. And then also we're very interested in Albania. And Albania has a really cool arrangement with the U.S. where a U.S. citizen can go to Albania for a year with no visa. So you could work remotely in Albania, and they have fairly good infrastructure for Wi-Fi and cell service, that kind of thing. Albania is not part of the EU as well. So Albania can be a home base where you go and spend time in the EU, and then you can a U.S. citizen can only stay 90 days at a time. And then they have to be out for 90 days, and then they go back for 90 days. So Albania can be a home base. So we're going to explore Albania, and that is part of the plan. And then we want to explore northern Spain. Northern Spain is very different than southern Spain, and geographically and culturally too. I've heard the comparison of it being a little more like the Pacific Northwest. Very green, big trees. They get more rain. More temperate, because it doesn't get blazing hot in the summer like southern Spain does. So we really want to explore some of northern Spain too. So
amazing. Well, I'm so glad you're back, because not having my regular dose of doing these podcasts and the 30 to 45 minutes we have to spend before every recording session catching up and laughing at goofy things that myself and my children have done. So I'm glad you're back.
I'm happy to be back.
With all that being said, our next episode, we're actually going to talk about this concept of long-term goals and short-term goals, and how you know what you're supposed to be working on when. And so be looking for that from us next week. And with all that being said, I'm sending you so much love, and
be well, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Conscious Edge podcast. Make sure you subscribe and take a moment to be kind and share this episode with someone you care about. Leave a review to help us bring more compassionate leaders building businesses and creating wealth to the table. And for show notes, head over to consciousedge.com/podcast. This podcast and the linked materials are presented solely for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes and should not be taken as personal or medical advice or any kind of mental health treatment. Please consult a medical or mental health professional if you feel you need such services. Please be advised that all investing and entrepreneurial endeavors involve risk, and the use of the education and information on this podcast and linked materials is at the user's own risk.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.